Hi, welcome to Friends Call Me Jules. I'm Jules, and if you're here, I'm glad that you're joining me for a plant video. It's been a minute since I've made a video, and honestly, it's because life has been lifing. Some things are just a result of busyness, and other things that have been happening are actually stressful and not in a positive way. And what I mean by that is, so not all stresses are negative. Sometimes you have things that are exciting that are happening, and it may be a little stressful making sure everything goes right, but it's a happy occasion. And other times, stress is negative due to negative circumstances, and I've had a little bit of both. So, positive life stressors as well as some negative things going on, and that's honestly affected my energy level as well as my motivation. So it's taken me a bit to get here to make a video, but I've still been caring for my plants, and I've still been doing everyday life. No stressor, caused me to, let's say, shut down and not do everyday life. So I'm still doing that. And so, I've acquired some new plants, and that makes me always revisit how much do I have and what can I take care of, and whether I'm overloading myself. So going to the plant market in New York City, which is a monthly event, I've gone like maybe 3 months. It happens once a month, and I think I've gone to possibly all 3 or maybe 2. But all that to say is each time I've gone, I've come back with a new plant, and I was already at my limit. So adding more to the collection is, I don't know, not really a good thing, maybe, especially if I felt like my bandwidth had already reached its limits. So I have to figure that out. But, just doing that, and in the life space that I've been trying to cull, right? Just peel back things that are not productive for me, whether it's plants that I don't want, and that's the title of this video, is plants that I don't want anymore, as well as other things in life that I, want to do better with, some things that I maybe want to shed, as well as setting boundaries and not allowing certain things to even turn into a situation. So with that introduction, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about why I chose to make this video. So I chose to make this video because, as I said, I collected a few new plants from the plant market, and I run into the problem of, well, where am I going to put this plant, or what's the best place for it? Do I need another grow light? Do I need another plant corner, another plant section? And I really honestly don't want to create more work for myself. And it's not just about the work, but it's about the ability to take care of a plant and to make it thrive. So that is the situation that I'm in, and it feels, a little hairy. And for me, whenever I take on more than I can handle, it kind of stresses me out, because I do always try to be a good steward of whatever I'm doing, whether it's work, whether it's plants, whether it's friends, whether it's, any situation, so yeah, so the plants are stressing me out too, but not like in the most horrible way that they're stressing me out. But, they're just some plants, right? Maybe you all can relate to this. Having some plants that are around the house that you collected for whatever reason, and either they're, 1, not bringing you joy, 2, they're not thriving, 3, you were super excited about them when you got them, and then it's been a long time and the thrill is just kind of gone, but you still care about it because it's a plant and it's something that's living. So that's kind of where I'm at with these guys. So I'm going to introduce them to you and tell you their story, and maybe I'll rank them. Maybe I'll rank them between like 1, keeping it, 5 being truly just sitting on the fence, to 10 like you got to get the boot, you got to get out of here. So I'm going to start and introducing them, and some of them actually are in places that are not easily moved. So what I'll eventually do is, after I introduce these guys that are sitting here on the table with me, I'll probably switch the format of this video and take you around to the few plants that can't be moved, but still show you the guys that are on the list that gotta get the boot. They gotta go. So starting with plant number 1, this is a cutting, a rooted cutting. It did really good. Look at the roots on this baby. This is a reverted cutting of a philodendron white stripe. I appreciate, just green foliage. I don't have to have everything variegated, but if I have a white stripe, I want it to have white stripes, and this guy doesn't. So I'm going to wind up giving this cutting away. I just had it in actually another jar that looked more like a vase. I took it out of the vase to give it away, and it kind of sat out for like a day, maybe 2, and so now it's wilted. So I just have it in here until I go ahead and give this guy away. So yeah, the philodendron white stripe is actually doing really well. It lives in my daughter's room, and it's beautiful. Every time it puts out a new leaf, I wonder what it's going to look like. And these were just cuttings. It had gotten so long that I may not edit that. And you know why? This may be one of the most least edited videos, almost like the first video, because I'm tired, guys. I'm so tired that I had to really, I don't want to say force myself to make this video, but I really did have to push myself to just kind of do things that brought me joy and not stay in this kind of, I'm not going to call it a rut, but just the one thing that is causing me a lot of stress. It's personal because it's regarding where I live. So, that's always hard. Because when you come home from work, home is your refuge, or, it's where you lay your head. It's where you, look to thrive, is in your home. So anyway, I won't go any further, but yeah, so this guy, hopefully someone will give it a home. It's getting the boot. It's going out of here. The next plant that is getting the boot is this guy. It is a philodendron. I think it's called philodendron lemon lime. And it's really cute. Like, see the more lime colored leaves? Maybe you can see them. I'm doing a not so good of a job kind of holding it up. But it has really cute leaves. It's a really cute plant. I think if it got more sun, maybe it would be lighter. It would stay more lime than, this, typical green foliage here. And again, nothing against green foliage. But this plant I bought when my daughter was going away to college. So she, of course, tolerates my plant collecting, and I'm encroached on her bedroom, and she appreciates plants. I won't say she's interested, but I'll just say she appreciates them. And so we wanted to get a plant for her room, just as a, as like a little, nod to me, and, something for her to remember me by. Not remember me like I'm gone, but like, she sees the plant, she nurtures the plant, it makes her think of home, it makes her think of me. So all that to say was, it got so hectic before she left that we just chose this one. So it didn't like speak to our hearts. It was just something that we just picked, because we were out of time and we wanted to get something. And she chose this guy, and she didn't want to take the whole plant. So she took a cutting, and the cutting died. The cutting died her freshman year. And this is mama plant. And I still had it, and what we had said, or what she said was, I have a cutting and then you have the mama plant, it's like we're both sharing the plant, and hers died and she is not thinking about this plant. And so it's got to get the boot. I've cared for it. It's done well. It was much smaller. See, it's pretty, it's got some good vining going on here. So I took good care of it, but I'm going to give it to someone else who will love it and not just tolerate it like I've been tolerating it. So I'll put this guy to the side. And the next plant that's got to go, it's so funny, the ones that I grabbed, and I'm looking over to see what I have next, that's out of the frame, but it's so funny because it's like all the plants that are getting the boot. They're going first, right? So this is another 10. This is getting the boot. So this is a big disappointment for me. Not in its growth because I think it's done well. There are 2 vines here, or 2 little plants here. So this is one here, and this is the other one on this side. Oops, where is it? On this side. And when I bought it, it was really small, maybe like maybe about 3 inches, you know, and it had, you know, just a few leaves on each stem. So this guy is actually a philodendron Gabby, and I got this from Perfect Choice Nursery, which you guys know is my favorite nursery when I go visit my mom in South Florida, Southwest Ranches, Florida, in like the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, near those areas. And so this was so beautiful when I got it, and it's still technically beautiful. There's nothing, you know, like structurally wrong with the plant, but it seems to lose the Gabby color that, you know, people love, and what makes them buy philodendron Gabby. So if I show you this leaf, like, you know, really interesting, you know, color patterns. You never know what you're gonna get, you know, so that's, you know, still like pretty cool. But Gabby tends to have, when it's really looking like a Gabby, I'm trying to find like a nice leaf, you know, like, you know, the patterns are pretty neat. But philodendron Gabby, when it really looks the way that people associate it with, it maintains more of the cream color, and you can see the different hues between, let's say okay, I'll go with this guy. Let's see if this is a good one. I can't angle it. I'll go with this guy. So, you know, what you would see here is, you know, of course you would have your dark green foliage, and then on the inside there would be some cream, there would be some lime coloration, and then like a darker lime, and, you know, almost like gradients of colors, different hues of color. And so for some reason, you know, this plant didn't revert. That's not what I would say, but it's just not maintaining that Gabby color that, you know, people associate it with, which is what I wanted. So I have the white stripe, and it's looking so much like the white stripe that I think I'm gonna just, not I think, it's getting the boot. This one is getting the boot because it's just not maintaining the color that I would like. Now, is it because it needs more light? That's a possibility. I was keeping this in indirect light in a southwest facing window, but a little further back from the window. So maybe that's why the color is this way versus keeping the vibrancy that I wanted it to have. So I'm not sure, but someone else can probably propagate it. Maybe they can give it more light, or maybe they just know how to take care and cultivate a Gabby more than I do, and I just don't have the bandwidth to do the research and then do the nurturing that this probably needs to really be living its best life. So because of that, this one is getting the boot, and it is going to be leaving my house. So say goodbye to philodendron Gabby. Okay, and next up, I'll do this guy because it's like right in my face and it's blocking me. So this is, I think it's called a Dracaena, some type of Dracaena. I've had this for a very, very long time. And it looks like a young plant, but it's actually very old. This plant is probably, let me start counting in my head, so ignore my facial expressions. This plant is probably like a good 18 years old, actually. And so it has, gone on its journey with me. If it obviously would have thrived in those 18 years, it would probably be a tall plant, a floor plant by now. And what I do appreciate about this plant is that it is resilient. 18 years, like how resilient can you be, right? It's resilient, and what would happen is in my neglect, would get these brown leaves, and then you cut the brown leaves off, and then there's the stem, and it just became like very top heavy at different times of this plant's life. And honestly, I would just chop the plant and then stick it back in the soil and it would reroot. So had it not lost these leaves, it would just be really full. And so this plant, there's a story behind this one. And sometimes I still have a hard time thinking about this plant and the idea of giving this plant away. But I'm going to go ahead and share the story and then share my thoughts and my feelings about it. This plant was given to me by a mommy friend of mine years ago when my father passed away. And so I was a plant person then, but I wasn't as experienced as I am now, meaning that, like I would say a typical person who just has a house plant or two, you go to Home Depot or any big box store, you buy a plant, you water it, and if you're lucky enough, it lives. If not, then it dies. And that's kind of the type of collector that I was. I wasn't really knowledgeable about plants. And so it was actually the reason why I kind of stopped collecting them, was because I just wasn't caring for them properly. The little care tag that you get inside of a plant from a big box store, I would follow it, but then the plant still wouldn't thrive. And so I just stopped collecting because I actually felt bad that I was killing plants. And obviously these are probably the days before Google, where, now anything is accessible in terms of finding information. So this plant lasted and it stood the test of time. And I just thought that it was such a kind gesture to give someone who lost a loved one a plant instead of flowers, because a plant is something that you can grow and you can nurture. And so that's what this guy has been, and I look at it like, oh, this is the plant, from my dad's passing. And I've kept it all these years. Like I said, it hasn't always thrived, but it's still here. And now, as I would say a collector, I do consider myself a collector. And the reason that I say that, like what makes someone a collector versus someone who just has a few plants, I think is when you start becoming more of, I don't want to use the word expert, but maybe expert in your own way of caring for plants. So you understand a little more than, what you generally get on a care tag, right? So now you're learning more about different genus of plants, what makes them thrive, what is harmful to them, what kind of conditions do they need, what kind of soil and amendments do they need. And now you're also looking for unique plants because you're interested in different types of plants, and you will seek them out and find unique plants or find plants that speak to your heart. And whether you're curating a home or you have a whole plant room, I think once you get to the level of really caring for plants, like in a 360 kind of way, and you're more deliberate about what you bring in your home and the way that you care for it and the way that you do anything that you need to do to make it thrive, whether it's greenhouses, whether it's grow lights, whether it's humidifiers. I think once you've gone down that route, you're probably more of a collector than someone who just has a plant or two. So with that being said, I just think that it's time for this guy to find a new home. It's so funny because now I'm feeling sad, like I really am just talking about it. I think it's time for this guy to find a new home, because I think this plant has it's given me what I needed, and this plant is not my father. It's not him. He is, he's gone on. His soul is omnipresent. And so I just think that it's okay for this plant to move on. So I'm happy for just being with me all this time. And maybe as I'm saying this now and getting kind of sad and trying not to cry on camera, maybe that means that I should keep it, and I don't want to part with this plant. So maybe it's not a 10 anymore. Maybe I'll make this guy a 5. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. So anyway, this was Dracaena that was on the plants that I don't want list, but maybe I do want him now. So I don't know. We'll see what happens to this plant. So I'll put it to the side. I'm gonna bring this one to the forefront, and there's a story behind this one, and it could be sad, and this is probably not the right plant to talk about after the Dracaena. So this is an orchid. This is called I can never remember the name. It's an Oncidium Siku Marguerite. I don't know if I said that right. And it's an orchid. It was in bloom last fall and into the winter. And it has really unique blooms. I'm going to be sure and put a picture into this video so that you can see what the blooms look like. They're not of course, it's not a phalaenopsis, so of course it doesn't look like that. But I would say that this is a more unique orchid. It's not one that you're going to find, in a department store or a big box store. And so the reason that I've been more interested in orchids, because 2 years ago my mom had a fall and she broke her hip, and she lives in Florida. I'm an only child, and Mom and I we had all my life a kind of I wouldn't call it tense, but what I would say is my mom is Korean, and as much as she assimilated and adopted a lot of American values and traditions, I think morally she's still Korean. She's still Korean at heart. And all that to say is she is a true tiger mom, right? And that just didn't work well with who I am. I'm really a sensitive, soft kind of person. And Mom is hard as nails. Whatever you do, it's not good enough. It's just not good enough. It's never, you just never reach the point of better. So, and even when you are doing good, it's different if, let's say, for example, as a child, I just wasn't a very good child, or I wasn't obedient, or I, didn't do well in school. It was actually quite the opposite. I was a really good kid. I tried my hardest, got good grades, and it was still never good enough. So it was just this expectation that I could just never live up to. And long story short, eventually by the time I became a teenager, I was screw this. Nothing that I do is good enough, so I don't care. And I'm not going to strive for any of the things that you want. So that's kind of the relationship we had, was like this push-pull relationship. And then, of course, you know, she drives home family values and just, what word am I looking for? You know, just expectations that she has. And she's also like very rigid. She has experienced some trauma like the Korean War. And, you know, of course, I understand she's a human being and she's a person. She's a parent that was trying to figure things out just like every other parent, you know, like when you become a parent, you don't get an owner's manual. So, of course, now I do recognize that and I can see her as an individual. I can understand maybe what drove some of her decisions, some of her parenting choices. And I think she is finally kind of learning. But all that to say is Mom is 82. And I know 82 can maybe seem young today, but she's what I would call an older 82. So it's been really hard to see my feisty mother become pretty frail. And it's not that she's doing bad, because she's still independent, but she's independent in her own little bubble. And other people have described her as someone who needs a lot of help. And a professional has described her as being diminished, which, you know, sounds harsh, but it's actually, you know, there's some truth there. So all that to say is when Mom was in the rehab center after the surgery, she physically was recovering well, but emotionally was having a very, very difficult time. And the one thing that brought her joy was an orchid that her friend bought her. And it was a Phalaenopsis. It bloomed white flowers, and she just loved it. She just thought the flowers were so unique. She didn't know what it was. She thought that the flowers were really, really unique. The fact that they stayed on there so long. So that became like a point of enjoyment for the two of us, was to just look at this orchid, marvel at it, care for it. And it actually lived with her in the rehab center and all the way up until she got discharged, which was actually like a month or like 2 months, I think. Yeah, somewhere, maybe a month and a half. I'll just go there. That's the sweet spot. So it actually stayed in bloom for like a month and a half, and it was beautiful. And so orchids just kind of became, you know, a symbol of like our relationship, the new relationship that we developed. So now we understand each other better, and I would say that we're close in a way that I wish we could have been like the whole time. So that's what orchids represent for me now, is my mom and the new relationship. So what I wanted to do was collect maybe different type of orchids. And so I found this oncidium at PlantCon when it came to New York City, and it was in bloom and it was so pretty and I was enamored by it. And now it's here, and I don't know, it's just not bringing me joy. And of course, you know, the backstory of developing a relationship with orchids that represent my mom, I think that's still there. You know, it's almost going to be like something sweet that will always be near and dear to my heart. But I don't think that this plant represents my mom. And so, you know, it's actually thriving. It's gotten much fuller since I bought it. I've had it for almost a year now, and it's growing. But I know that it either needs more humidity or more water. I don't think it's water. I think it's humidity. So see these kind of ridges here? I think this is what happens when it needs more humidity, I believe. And this is kind of, let's see, these bulbs here, right? So that it kind of grows from these bulbs and it grows out. So from what I've read, wherever it bloomed before, it won't bloom again from that spot. Only the new bulbs will produce blooms. And so I don't know if it's going to bloom again at the end of this summer. But I'm just kind of losing, you know, the excitement for it. I don't know what I expected. I really don't. Maybe I expected leaves to not be as crispy. Maybe I thought that it would grow a little neater. I don't know. So I'm on the fence with this guy. He's at about a 5, you know. I may keep him to see if he blooms at the end of this summer, or, you know, he's going to get the boot. So that's this guy. This is a philodendron white princess. Yes, white princess. And I guess I'll just take it out of the pot. And it is cute, right? You all know that's my word, cute. And so, you know, it's a really cute plant. Doesn't always do the best. And it has this unique growth habit. I kind of in some ways like this growth habit. It looks messy. I don't know if I can show you in here. It's so hard. But there are like, this is like one stalk or stem here. This is another one here. This is like a little baby on this side here. It just has a more bushy growth than like if you think of the pink princess, which grows up like a vine. And see, look, you sometimes get pink with this plant. So it does have a bushy growth habit, which I appreciate because I don't have to worry about a moss pole. But it just struggles so much. Like it will stay curled sometimes like this for a long time. Sometimes it unfurls, sometimes it doesn't. Like I'm going to show you, hopefully I can show you this. Like see this? It'll kind of do this business here and not really, uh-oh, I lost it. It'll do this and then not really unfurl. So it just kind of takes a lot of, not work, but I can't find the right conditions. I don't know if it's humidity. I don't know if it needs more water. I'm not really sure why, you know, it just grows in this wonky way. Leaves are getting smaller instead of sizing up. So I don't know why this plant just stays angry. That's what I'm calling it, angry, because I would assume that leaves would get larger as it matures. It's maintaining its color. It just looks pretty bad because at one point I had it in direct sun in the southwest facing window. And then I moved it to indirect light. I did have a plant get spider mites in my daughter's room because it sits on this shelf like right near her air conditioner, and also the door to the balcony is in her room. So I don't know if just that natural air, I don't know, I'm grabbing at straws, right? So I don't know if that natural air is what, you know, somehow spider mites, I don't know if they blow in, I don't know if they just magically appear. I have no idea. But, you know, I did like a heavy round of neem oil and the dish soap together, and it gets a shower every now and then. And so it doesn't have any spider mites or any pests now, but that's why some of the leaves are probably not looking as good, and maybe something with the lighting where it's browning in the white areas. And again, I don't know why it's producing smaller leaves versus larger leaves. I did do a repot. I repotted with Fox Farm this spring, sorry. And maybe it's mad about that. I don't know, but I've had this guy for maybe like 3 or 4 years. And we've been kind of, you know, fighting a little bit. So, you know, there's a part of me that wants to keep it. And then there's another part of me that's like, it's got to get the boot. So I don't know. It might be at a 5. But like, you know, like look at that leaf. Like that's really, that's really cute. And like I said, you do get pink sometimes. you know. Like look at the all white leaf. Yeah, you do really get like neat color with this plant, you know. And it's gotten more green, I think, since it's gone in indirect light. Now that I'm saying it out loud, maybe that's why it's not as happy. I don't know. But not that it was like, you know, growing super tall, you know, in the direct sun either. So I don't know. So this guy, he's on the chopping block. I don't know what's going to happen with him. Now the last two before I have to change the format of the video, because I think I have 1, 2, maybe 3 that I can't move until I would actually decide to give it away. But these 2 that are on the table, they're in pretty sad shape. They're in really sad shape. This is the remnants of an anthurium. I forget the name, and when I edit, I will put the name in the video. But this plant came from Ecugenera, and it would grow really large leaves. It would have been a floor plant. And this one did suffer some damage from transport. And so it was like on the 50% off cart. But it had really, really great roots, really beautiful, chunky white roots. And I don't know what the heck happened. It just continued to decline. And it tried its hardest. It tried to put out like 1 leaf, but then that leaf died quickly. And now here we are, and all I have is a chunk. These roots are dried out. However, the chunk is still green. Like it's green, and there are a couple of growth points that would be new leaves. So I don't know if I should try and, you know, still root this guy or just let him go. Maybe someone else would want to give this a try and encourage growth. But for right now, it's just kind of sitting in moss. I keep the moss wet so that it creates humidity to hopefully activate some roots. I create a little dome and, you know, some holes so it can get some oxygen, some airflow. And this is what it's living in hopes that maybe it'll produce some roots. If it produces roots, like I would keep it. I would keep it because I would like to see how it develops. And I just want to see it thrive. Like it's a big plant, and I've come to love big plants, although I only have 1 large plant corner, and I would love to see it thrive. I think my ultimate goal is to have large plants, and then I would just have fewer plants, but they would be so mature that they take up a lot of space and just look, I don't know, would they look architectural? I don't know. But I do collect plants with a varying amount of, not varying, but I'm having a brain fart, hold on. With just different leaf patterns, either leaf patterns or leaf textures. So that way, you know, when I look around, I just see a diversity of plants, and they add to the aesthetic of my space also. So it's something that I would enjoy, and then when guests come over, it'll be like, oh wow, look at that, that's neat. I kind of find joy in finding unique plants, just something that you don't see every day. It just makes it feel extra special in the house to me. So it's part of my collecting. So listen, either don't laugh at me or don't curse me for this plant, because this looks horrible. Horrible, and you could probably see it, right? But I'm just, you know, let's go with this close up. Look at that. That is so crispy. It is a shame. Like, I'm gonna start a fire in my apartment with this damn plant. So all you can see, obviously, are green stems, and it's sitting in moss, and it kind of has the same thing going on as the other anthurium here. This is, did I even tell you guys what this is? This is Anthurium veitchii, and it actually is a mature chunk. It was a mature plant. The leaves were pretty large, and I actually bought this from someone who had to move, who unexpectedly had to move, and this person had a rare plant collection, and everything was like it's $10. Like everything was like $10, $15. I don't think anything was more than $20. I don't even think anything was $20 because at the point he was at, he just needed to leave his apartment, but he wanted his plants to go to, you know, another home because what else was he going to do with them? And so yeah, so he had this veitchii and I brought it home. But what he did say was that he couldn't figure out what was going on with it. It would like produce a leaf and then it would kind of struggle. So, you know, he just didn't know what was going on with it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a try. So I brought it home and I left it alone because I know, of course, it needs to acclimate from his apartment to mine. So I didn't bother the roots, didn't repot, didn't do anything. I just left it alone. And it seemed like it was going to thrive because it put out 2 new leaves. And the first new leaf it put out, it dried up and it eventually died. So I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. Then the second leaf it put out was smaller. And I'm like, okay, sometimes you get smaller leaves. The plant is stressed. And so the smaller leaf stayed there for a bit. And then I think it put out maybe 1 or 2 more leaves and they consistently got smaller and then the leaves were dying. So I'm like, okay, there's definitely something going on. So when I took the plant out of the pot that it was living in, the roots were so compact, right? And we're not just talking about like, you see the roots and you're going to give it, you know, more space. Like the roots were like so compact that you would think that it was just a pot full of roots with like no soil. Like it was just, I couldn't even tease the roots like loose. Like it was just so jam-packed, so tight. So what I think is the roots just really couldn't get any oxygen and not much nutrients. And by the time I did anything about it, it's probably like maybe too late, or was it already too late? Because that's the way the roots were. The plant was actually inside of a, like a clear blue decorative kind of plastic pot that was actually pretty cool. So you were able to see the roots. So I could see that like the plant was like root bound, but I didn't realize like it was beyond root bound. It was like a special kind of, you know, like knotting of roots, like. And so I did repot it, but long story short, this is what happened, right? It just continued to decline. The roots just, you know, I think they were just very, very old, mature roots that would have just naturally died off, but there was no space for any new roots to form. So this is what I have here. And the stump does have some green. So it's got the same condition, humidity to see if I can get it to maybe try and produce some roots. So I don't know how much patience I'm gonna have for these 2 guys. They are pretty cool plants, but yeah, I don't know how much patience I'm gonna have with them. So they're probably at a 5, right? So it's almost like I'm 50-50 here. Some plants are getting the boot, they're at a 10, and these guys are at a 5. It's funny, no one's at like a 2 or a 3. No one's at like a 6 or a 7. You're either at a 5 or you're at a 10. So, so that's what I have for the table. And then I may have like 2 or 3 more plants to show you, and then I'll be closing out this video. All right. So this plant that I want you to focus on is the plant that's on the wall to the left. It's a pothos marble queen, and it's growing nicely. I'll kind of zoom up a little bit. It's growing nicely. It's trailing down, as you can see. And I've already taken like huge cuttings of this. And so it's getting thinner because I already took like a lot of cuttings. And the reason that it's hanging over this plant was because I was going to cut it yesterday. But then I didn't have time to cut it and then give it to the person. So I'm not going to chop the plant until I'm ready for it to go to its new home, and that'll probably be sometime today or tomorrow. But you know, this is my large plant corner, and it just looks pretty crowded here, and I guess that's what a large plant corner would be, is pretty crowded, right? But I just think it would be too much. I have a Bilietti that I just brought from the bedroom into the living room. If you can maybe see it right there, you can definitely see the moss pole in the middle. So I'm gonna have to put a new moss pole there because I'm sure you can see the tip of new growth right there. And I have an aerial root that's growing out of this moss pole, so I have to add to it so it can continue climbing up. And so when it gets to about right here, if I have this pothos vine hanging, it's just gonna be too much. So I don't know. I think I'm a organized kind of person, and I even want the plants to be a little organized. I don't know if that makes sense. It may not even make sense. It's plants, right? But all that to say is this pothos may be on the chopping block, and maybe what I would put there is something that doesn't grow as vigorously. So not sure, but Marble Queen is on the chopping block. The next plant that might make it to the list of plants that gotta go is the variegated string of hearts. It lives in my north facing window, and this is it. It's pretty long, and I've had it for quite a while. And as you can see, it goes all the way down to, let's see, it's losing focus. It goes all the way down to the floor. And so it's just not doing as well as I would like it to be. I think for some reason it's struggling. I don't know if it's thirstier, but anyhow, I'm just not sure what I want to do with this guy, whether I want to keep it, whether I want to propagate it. Yeah, I don't know. And if I go back up really quickly, quick note is see these short vines here? Those were actually cuttings that I took from the bottom and then popped it right back down. And the thing is, it's not growing. They're not growing. So I will have to check the roots because this is a pretty vigorous grower and normally it would have grown down. So I'm not sure, but this one, if I have to give it a number and rate it, I would say it's probably at about a 3 in terms of do I keep it or do I not keep it, because as I find homes for the new plants that I bought, maybe something else can go in that window. The last plant that's on the chopping block that you're looking at is the big bush in the middle. This is my daughter's room. It's a southwest facing window, and what we have in this pot is a Hoya Iris Marie and a Hoya odorata, and these grow like they're not, I don't know how to describe them because they're not climbing Hoya like others that look to grab something. They're almost more viney. I don't know. Again, I can't find the words to describe it, but it doesn't climb. It's not really trying to stick to anything. It's not bushy, but yeah, I don't know. It just grows in these like spindly looking vines, right? And so this guy I've had for a long time, maybe since 2021. It's been a pretty good grower. It does bloom. The Iris Marie is supposed to be harder to bloom than the Hoya odorata. They both have the same leaf shape, so at this point I can't tell which one is which, but I do know that only the Iris Marie is blooming because of the shape of the flowers, and the odorata hasn't bloomed since. So I prefer the odorata because it's supposed to have a stronger, more fragrant scent when it blooms, but it hasn't bloomed. So I'm just kind of like at a loss for this one. But it's so full and so bushy, as you can see. Like, I have it clipped. If I take these clips out, like, the bush would be crazy. So, and then this other Hoya now is growing. This is Matrata. He's not on the chopping block, he's staying. So he's growing into this one. He's got a peduncle here, leaf, So I've got a whole situation going on over here. And so I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but this guy is on the chopping block. And you know what? Maybe this is the first one that I would consider being at like a number 3.5, 4. This is my daughter's little shelf, and it takes up a lot of space. So I'm just not sure how long I'm going to have this guy here. So this is the last of the plants that have got to go. So those few clips actually concludes this video for the plants that have got to get out of here. I think as plant collectors, and even not collectors, I think anyone who has a house plant that has either outgrown them or they have outgrown the house plant eventually faces the dilemma of what to do with the plant when it's time for them to move on. So hopefully this video, helps you kind of realize that all plant collectors go through this and have to at some point decide what do they want to keep in their home, what's of value to them, what speaks to their heart. You may have to reevaluate your space or your time, but plant collecting is an active hobby, and there are many different phases that come with it and transitions that you have to make as you go further into the hobby, or sometimes even some people have to step away and scale down. I've even heard stories of people who have to kind of stop collecting altogether. So it's definitely not one of the hobbies that, is more, let's say, cut and dry. And so I think, deciding to downgrade a collection for something non-living is definitely much different than downgrading a plant collection. So at the very least, this video was done kind of, a little bit in a funny kind of way, just to highlight, some of the uncomfortable things about plant collecting. I think a lot of times we see videos of beautiful plants and people thriving in the hobby, but what are some of the other sides of this hobby that are either a struggle, maybe even a little painful, maybe something that you're working through, you're unsure of. So I think sometimes videos that shows all aspect of collecting, can be helpful. So let me know in the comments if you have, plants that you need to find new homes for. Why are you rehoming your plants? What kind of transitions do you go through? Because sometimes, we do our best and it's just time to move on. Like sometimes in life, it's just time to move on from certain situations and circumstances and maybe even people. I think we all have new seasons in our lives, just like plants have new seasons in their lives as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm going to forewarn you right now that, and of course I'm at the end of the video, so maybe the forewarning should have been at the beginning, but this will probably be a video that is not heavily edited. It's a new channel and I'm new to producing videos. So, my second video was probably, definitely not edited the best, which I'm not worried about because everyone starts somewhere. But I had gotten better at the editing, but I think where I am emotionally, which may correlate to my need to purge excess, with the plants, because I want to purge excess in my life. Just forewarning, or maybe confirming, reaffirming that this video may not be heavily edited. This is me and this is life, and it's not always perfect, but I do want to share content, and I did actually miss producing the videos. I think I had a rhythm that I had developed, and just life shifting the way that it did, it kind of came to a halt. And in the back of my mind, I just kept thinking like, oh, I got to put out a new video. I want to put out a new video. It's been a while, because I was actually having fun doing it. I began to get the feeling that I was not just talking into a phone, not just talking into, a device that's recording me, but I started to feel like I was actually talking to people. So I did miss doing it. I did miss just knowing that I was talking to you all out there. So I'm glad to be back, and I'm going to be back and showing up in the way that I can. And this is how I can show up today, is to just fight through, whatever distractions that I have in my life, and to just show up. So this is me showing up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.